What's up, everybody? This is Blake&VishSports, Sports, episode 19. We're happy to be out here streaming again. It's been a little while. Last time you saw us, we were on here with Grant Cohn talking about some very interesting things. That was a good time. Blake, what's up, bud?
Yeah, nothing much, Vish. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. So we got a very interesting show planned for you guys. We wanted to do something a little different. So what we've done here is first we're going to break down the Miami Dolphins. Today we're going to talk about them for a good amount and what they should do at 3, because I think everybody keeps talking about the Jets at 2 with Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, what they should do. But I think Miami at 3 is really, really, really interesting too. So I would love. We're going to have a little spirited debate about what they should do at 3. We've got a little to discuss, and then we're going to go through the receivers in free agency. We got 4 receivers who we think are the best receivers of this free agency, and we've picked a landing spot. And we're going to tell you why they should go to so-and-so team. It's going to be super fun and interesting, so let's get into it. So, Blake, I'm going to ask you this first question right off the bat.
All right.
Should the Miami Dolphins take a quarterback at pick 3?
I don't think they should. I really don't. I think there's an argument to be made, though. And the argument basically is if they think that if either Fields or Wilson is going to be that dude that's like a top 8 quarterback or like really, really good, then they would take him. And the thing with that, too, is they would have to think that Tua is not that good. And I know he didn't play like the number 5 overall pick. I get that. He was average, right? Like he wasn't really pushing the ball downfield. I have faith in him that he'll figure it out when they get more weapons. He gets a whole offseason under his belt. He's not dealing with an hip surgery in the offseason. So I don't think they should, but I'm interested to hear. Do you think they should go quarterback at 3?
I mean, it's a really tough question, right? Because, I mean, it's really hard to evaluate Tua. He's coming off a serious injury. He's had a shortened offseason. They didn't have the best weapons for him. I think the big reason why people are so down on Tua is the Ryan Fitzpatrick, playing him. And that's why I say that they should take a quarterback at 3. Because what they showed you this season is that by playing Ryan Fitzpatrick, they're a win-now team. They're ready to go. They're ready for the Super Bowl. And I don't know if Tua's there yet, and I don't know what Tua's high-end ceiling is, but I certainly didn't love it before the draft, and I love it even less now. He's not the biggest guy. He doesn't have a particularly strong arm. He doesn't throw. He at least didn't throw with a lot of anticipation his first year. He had to see guys open. He doesn't make very many throws with bodies around him in the pocket. And he doesn't make very many throws into tight windows. All of those things make me kind of disconcerted because this is a team that has the talent and the coach and have the assets in terms of picks and money to be able to compete with the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens next year. And so I think Tua is still going to be a good quarterback? Yes, I absolutely do. I don't see a scenario where he busts. I think he's going to be a good player. He's got like a good way about him. He's accurate. He's got poise, and I think he can be a good quarterback. But I see a ceiling with Justin Fields that's really high. And if he's there at 3 man, it's enticing because the worst case scenario for the Miami Dolphins would be for Tua to play good football, but him to be a ceiling player, and you get into the middle of the playoffs and you have this totally stacked team and Brian Flores is killing it with his defensive game plans. And you're like the Rams where Jared Goff is just not good enough, or you're the Niners where Jimmy G is just not good enough there to compete with the top guys. And that's where I think Justin Fields, from a physical talent perspective, he has the type of talent that can go head to head with Josh Allen in terms of just pure physical talent. I mean, maybe not Josh Allen and Mahomes, they're freaks, but Justin Fields is really, really talented in terms of his arm strength, his legs, his body, his physical strength by himself. And so for that reason, I mean, it would have to come down to them thinking that Justin Fields could reach his potential. But if they do feel that, I think that it's a trigger that they might have to pull.
Yeah, it's interesting with Tua too, right? Like, he didn't do anything like crazy spectacular where you'd see him like make a few plays and you're like, okay, I could see him being really good. I think I've seen that with like Darnold or Drew Lock where like you see they have that arm talent. Like, wow, that was an insane throw. Like only a few quarterbacks can do that. But then they do something like dumb. Like with Tua, it was more of just like he would, be on the run, making like a 5-yard pass, and his player would get tackled. Like it wasn't anything crazy. Now the Cardinals game, he had some big moments. Like he had a couple of insane runs. I think his running's pretty good, but it's not like Lamar or Cam where like you can add that as like a huge proponent of your offense, right? So yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, I love how you brought that up with Tua because I don't think he did particularly anything terrible. I mean, outside of that last Bills game, he didn't have very many interceptions where you said, "Oh, God damn, Tua, what are you doing?" Or, "Oh, Tua, like that was such a rookie decision." Yeah. He didn't have anything terrible like that. And the Cardinals game, he did play very well, though. Yeah. Dre Kirkpatrick was out, and then their backup corner, Kevin Peterson, got hurt in that game. I think it was Kirkpatrick. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that's something to consider. I mean, Tua's going to be, I think, good. You give him better weapons and you give him a better line, he's going to be good. I think we're both agreeing with that. The question is, how good is he going to be? And this is a team that has a special coach and has the ability where they could be a Super Bowl team in the next 2 years. And if Tua's ceiling is not good enough, I mean, look at the quarterbacks that have won the last Super Bowls. Brady, Mahomes. I mean, Nick Foles is kind of the outlier. Nick Foles was playing like a top 10 quarterback for a 3-game stretch in the playoffs. He played out of his mind. So because of that, I just think that, like, yeah, you can be attached to Tua as a fan. You can say, well, we got to give quarterbacks time. But the reality in the NFL is that windows are so small. And if they don't believe that Tua has that high-end ceiling where they can still be a playoff team with Tua next year. There's no doubt about it. They could be a playoff team. Yeah, they will be a playoff team with Tua. But the question is, can they win a Super Bowl with Tua? And, I mean, we all say, like, look, the Niners went to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G. Look, the Rams went to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff. But none of these teams ended up winning. And so for those reasons, and just because of his lower end in terms of physical talent, I would just say bite the bullet and take a quarterback at 3.
And here's the thing, too, is they're not gonna draft at number 3 again unless they get super lucky with a trade or somehow their whole team just gets put on IR. Like they are gonna be playoffs and at worst case like 8 wins if everything fails, which would be like bearing like an ultimate collapse. They're not gonna have the opportunity to get a guy at number 3. Now the other thing is they could trade this pick and try to get a quarterback that way. Which is always feasible. But if they want a young guy for 5 years on a rookie contract to go to this team and they don't think Tua's that guy, they are in a prime spot to do that. Like, this is their chance. Like, they have to make that decision now.
Yeah, and everybody agrees the quarterbacks in this draft are special, and you brought it up. They're not going to be picking in the top 5 a lot. And to me, when you have a top 5 pick, you got to get a quarterback, a special edge rusher, and offensive tackle. And now we're going to discuss the route they should go, whether they take a Sewell or a Slater there. But, I mean, if this is that special a quarterback draft as everybody says, and you feel really confident about Justin Fields' ceiling because he is the more physically gifted player when you compare him and Tua, then I say pull the trigger. I just say pull the trigger.
Yeah, it's interesting. And they have tons. So they have tons of picks, tons of cap space. So, like, if they do get rid of Tua, they will get additional compensation with that too. So they really need to consider it. But again, I think my ultimate take is have Tua go another year. I still think he can develop to be like a I don't know if he'll ever be like a top 8 quarterback just based on.
I don't think so. I don't think he's that gifted.
Yeah, unless he somehow, started throwing with insane anticipation, got a lot smarter, started just like dissecting defenses, which the guys who don't have crazy arm talent they can do, like the Mannings.
Right. Everybody wants to put the Breeze comparison out, but I mean, come on, like. Drew Brees is such an isolated, like Drew Brees is kind of a singular example. There's not a lot of Drew Breeses in NFL history. And so like, he's kind of a singular example. And even Drew Brees needed Sean Payton and a dome to help him succeed. So I think I'm with you. I don't see a very high ceiling for Tua. At the end of the day, he's not overly athletic. He's not very big. He doesn't have a very strong arm, and he doesn't really stand tall and tough in the pocket, especially after all the injuries he's taken. So it's really tough to look at him and say he's going to be a top 15 quarterback for sure.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So, and they got to make the decision now. They can't keep sitting on it. Do you have another?
Absolutely. They're never going to get a chance to make the decision again. And they might be in the playoffs 2 years from now and be like, damn, that this guy is good, but he just wasn't good enough. And there's just one more angle I wanted to take it with you and get your thoughts on, and it's the Watson angle. Let's say there's a bizarro world where the Texans actually decide, like, all right, Deshaun Watson's actually not going to play for us. We should probably trade him and get the number 3 overall pick. I think that Miami with Deshaun Watson would be beyond special.
Oh yeah, that they would be insane because they would have to gut some of their draft capital, but they still have a really good defense, top 8 defense, and it's only getting better. They have a lot of young people. Their offensive weapons, there's still some to be desired there. Don't get me wrong, but that can be addressed in either free agency or if, they want to go the route of drafting. Like, there's tons of good receivers, and they still need help on the O-line. So quarterback for them would be crazy. Do you think they will go after Watson, or do you think they're kind of content with Tua or maybe a quarterback at 3?
I mean, I don't know, but I mean, how can you not go after Deshaun Watson, especially when it's been reported that you're his first choice?
Yeah.
He wants to come play for you. And like, no offense to Tua. It feels like we're bashing Tua. I like Tua. I don't think he's bad. I think he should be given a chance. I think that people are a little too hard on him. At the same time, he does have a ceiling.
Yeah.
And he will never be as good as Deshaun Watson. I can say that with 100% confidence today on Friday, March 12th, 2021.
Yeah, and I think we could take this the other route now, and that's if they don't draft a quarterback, what should they do at 3? So I think the main things people are talking about now are Jamar Chase, Sewell, Rashawn Slater, or potentially trade down. What do you think the best option is here?
I think for the Miami Dolphins, because they drafted Austin Jackson last year, they extended Eric Flowers to play guard. I think they're looking for more continuity in their offensive line. If I'm not mistaken, they also drafted another tackle in the middle rounds last year. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a lot of information to just have in my head off the top of my head. But I think that the offensive lineman route is a little rich. I think at 3 itself, I'd rather have them trade down. I've watched Penei Sewell. I think he's a really, really great run blocker. I think he's a good pass protector, but I think Jedrick Wills from last year is a better prospect than him, which sounds crazy to say, but my point while saying that is that I don't think Penei Sewell is Orlando Pace or Jonathan Ogden or Walter Jones or Trent Williams, the type of guy that Laramie Tunsil was like this. You draft him, you put him on the left side for 15 years, and that's it. I don't think he's that guy. I think he's a really good player, but I don't think he's that guy. And so for that reason, I think if you get a great offer, you trade down from 3. I don't like taking Jamar Chase at 3. I've outlined it for a variety of reasons before. Yeah, I think if they're able to trade down 8 to 10, get Jalen Waddle, to me, that's the sweet spot for them. Get Waddle or get Sewell 8 to 10 or get Slater 8 to 10. That, to me, is the sweet spot.
Interesting. Okay, so here's my thought on it. I'm big on no to Jamar Chase. We've talked about that. O-lineman, I would be cool with that, honestly. That'll just help overall. I don't think you can ever have enough good O-linemen like that. You can never say that. I'd say that's my number one thing. Honestly, draft Sewell or an O-lineman. And here's I'm gonna say trade down would be the best option. And here's why. So the Panthers are at 8. They are gonna take a quarterback or acquire one in free agency. I think that's been like undeniably confirmed, right? The Broncos are sitting there at 9, and Drew Lock just doesn't look like that great of a quarterback by all accounts. So they could be in the market for a quarterback. And there's 3 big names, right? And we don't know what the Falcons are going to do at 4 because, Matt Ryan's older, so they could take someone. So if they trade back to 8 or 9, I'm thinking at minimum they would get at least a next year first, and then like 2 seconds. I think they would get that, honestly. Trade back to 8 or 9. They could take, if they did, they could take an O lineman there. If they did want a receiver, like they could take Waddle, they could take Smith, or Chase is there and they really like him, they could take him. I think trading back is the move just because of what they acquire, and it's not like a guy they're getting is much worse. And then here's one more tidbit, Vish. So Brian Flores was saying, it was either Flores or their GM, when talking about the position, he was saying, this is a quote, he said, "I know that there's a lot of good players and we've been scouting them, and I think there's 10 really, really good ones." So it sounds like he's open, or they're open to the idea of trading down a little bit, getting some more capital, and then getting a guy who they would maybe take at 3 anyway because they really like him. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. So real quick, they did draft Robert Hunt, and he started 11 games for them, 39th overall. So Austin Jackson, one side, Solomon Kinley, right guard, was also a pretty high draft pick, and then Robert Hunt. So they have a young offensive line. They just got Isaiah Wilson, who was a first-round pick for peanuts and a 7th-round pick. So I just think that offensive line, it's maybe not the most pressing need, though it needs to get better because they have a lot of investment there already. So I'm with you on the trade down. So if he thinks there's 10 really good players in the draft, then that means he thinks he's going to get a really good player if they trade down. You outlined Carolina. You said Denver. I think there's a part of me as a Niners fan that's thinking that the Niners are going to go trade up to 3 and get Justin Fields. So Niners at 3 is another one. And because of that, I say what I think is that ultimately they should trade down. I don't like the idea of Jamar Chase with Tua Tagovailoa. I don't think it's a good fit because Tua doesn't throw a lot of balls that are contested. And Jamar Chase, his game is really, he's special with contested catches. I think Jalen Waddle is really the special fit. Tua's got a really quick release. He's really accurate short. You give him a guy that he can get the ball out to quickly and is going to make plays. And Jalen Waddle is that guy. I think Jalen Waddle I like Jalen Waddle so much. He's the closest thing I think I've ever seen to Tyreek Hill. And I would say no way you take him at 3 because he's 5'10". But trade down, get Jalen Waddle. To me, if you don't take a quarterback, that's ideal for the Miami Dolphins.
And Tua did play with Waddle and Smith. So either of those guys, he'd already have a rapport with them. Like, it would be a little different. It's the NFL, but, still that's definitely some continuity that would help him a lot. And, I mean, he killed it at Bama, so that would be insane.
Absolutely. So real quick, before we go to the next topic, Brian Pollock here very kindly donated $9.99. We appreciate you, Brian. He says, #extend Jimmy G. If they don't make a move at quarterback, I would actually like them to do something with Jimmy G's contract. Show some sort of commitment to the position. I think the Niners are playing a very dangerous game with their quarterback.
Yeah. And then I did want to put this up here too. So most people have Sewell at 1 and Slater 2. But Slater's been ranked really, really highly by I know Daniel Jeremiah and then a few other guys.
He has Slater above.
Slater 1, yeah. So these guys are both really, really good prospects. And then 2, the Dolphins have the 18th pick too. So if they think if there's a receiver there, like maybe a Bateman, Kadarius Toney, another guy like that, they'll maybe think about receiver there. And then, they could draft, they could go O-line, receiver, or
linebacker.
Yeah, like Micah
Parsons. But there's also linebacker value with like a Jabril Cox in the middle rounds, and the Dolphins have 5 picks I think it's 5 in the top 100 or 4.
They have a lot.
They have a wealth of picks, and you could play the same game with the offensive tackle to receiver because Darisaw is considered to be a first-round pick. Elijah Vera Tucker, though some people project him as a guard, he could play tackle too. So there are other players where the Dolphins, honestly, the bottom line is that they control this draft.
Yes, they do. I think the Jets are up there too because they have the second pick, obviously, but they also have another first and then additional picks. So this draft's going to be just absolutely insane with the quarterbacks. There'll probably be a run similar to 2018, I'd imagine, where there's 5, 6 in the first round. So something to be excited for in April coming up.
Yeah. So speaking of the Jets and them controlling the draft, we're going to start talking about these receivers. And the 4 receivers we're really planning to hit on, in my opinion, the 4 most interesting names are Curtis Samuel, Corey Davis, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Kenny Golladay. And we're going to start off with Corey Davis. And we think that the New York Jets should sign Corey Davis. So, Blake, I'm going to start off and outline why. First of all, I think Corey Davis is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. I think that A.J. Brown is basically a top 10 receiver, if not like right there with the top 10 receivers. And I think Corey Davis is almost as good as A.J. Brown. Like Corey Davis was dominant last year. And the reason I think the Jets need to sign him is, one, he's a really good route runner. He's got good hands. He's good after the catch. He brings everything you want as a receiver to the position. And the big thing is that the concepts between the Tennessee Titans offense and the Mike LaFleur, who's going to run the Shanahan offense, are translatable. Arthur Smith runs a version or runs an offense with a similar philosophy and conceptually similar to the Shanahan offense. And that's the offense Corey Davis has played in. From that standpoint, I think it would be a pretty seamless transition. And I think whoever the quarterback is, whether it's Zach Wilson or whether they keep Sam Darnold, Corey Davis would be very, very, very consistent. He's just a guy that gets open. He's consistent, good hands, catches the ball, good after the catch. He's just a really, really good football player. And I think he's exactly what the doctor ordered for the Jets.
Yeah. So with that, I think the transition's like one of the big things. Like obviously going from a similar system to this, from one system to another, and they're similar. Obviously, continuity there helps. Second, when you look at the Jets, just playmakers in general, last year they had Frank Gore as their starting running back, so that's all you need to know there. Chris Herndon, the tight end, is still coming in. And then at receiver, they had Jamison Crowder, who is really good in the slot, but he's constantly injured, so he's not the most reliable. And then Denzel Mims, who they drafted in the second, is more of a burner type of guy. So I think Corey Davis would complement them both in being kind of just like the jack-of-all-trades receiver, where he's not just specialized in one area, but he can do pretty much anything really, really well. And that'll really help for whoever they have at quarterback, whether that's Darnold or most likely possibly Wilson or Fields, or maybe they trade for a guy. We don't know that yet. But whatever quarterback's back there could use some help with the weapons they have. And they have cap space too. That's the other thing. There's a few teams that just have tons and tons of cap space, and the Jets are one of them. And they need to improve for a receiver, because whatever quarterback they have, they can't put him in the same position as Darnold's been in the last few years, where there's not a great O-line and no weapons. It's just not a recipe for success.
And the O-line problem was seemingly a much better last year. I mean, Mekhi Becton is a stud. And I think it's Pat Eifline. I don't want to mispronounce his name. Pat Eifline, who they got off waivers from the Minnesota Vikings. Pat Elflein absolutely killed it for them when he played last year. Pat Elflein played really good for them. So because of that, I think that Corey Davis would change their offense. And the other thing is that Shanahan's offense, the offense LaFleur is going to implement, is really complex. Like we've seen Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk talk about how long it took them to get the verbiage down. Well, I think that for a guy like Denzel Mims, it's going to take him a little bit of time to get the verbiage down. Yeah. So maybe Corey Davis, because there's some similarities from Arthur Smith and Mike LaFleur and Kyle Shanahan's offense, where maybe Corey Davis would be huge because he could come in from day one and be a pros pro. And I think a combination of Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, Jamison Crowder, maybe you draft a guy, would be super, super, super solid for any quarterback. Or maybe you signed one more guy like Kendrick Bourne from the 49ers would be a good signing for the Jets. I mean, Kendrick Bourne, a draft pick, Denzel Mims, Corey Davis. Like now your quarterback's going to be in a decent position. Maybe you get Juju Smith too. The Jets own free agency because most teams in the NFL don't have the money to make moves. And the Jets, the Patriots, the football team, Washington football team, the Dolphins, these teams that do have the money are sitting here like they're going to be able to get the pick of their players. Yeah,
and what his price range is, I don't think it. What do you think he will go for? I think if it was a shorter deal, like probably 10 to 12 million.
I'd say 10 to 14, right?
Yeah, and well, you also got to factor in too. So the Titans didn't pick up his 5th-year option. His first 4 years, he was like the number 5 pick. Everyone thought he was going to be this stud, and his first 4 years were kind of underwhelming for his draft stock, or his draft position rather. But that 5th year, he turned it on, and I don't think it'll be a one-year wonder. I think he definitely benefited a lot from Tannehill being there and not Marcus Mariota. So I think sky's the limit for the Jets if they do get him with their offensive weapons, just like actually having like reliable people that they haven't had in the past.
Yeah, and you brought it up, right? You don't think he's a one-year wonder, but I also don't think, like I told you, I think he's really good. I think he's almost as good as A.J. Brown, but he's not A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown was the number 1 receiver for that team, and he just lacks that quick twitch explosiveness and kind of like being that special upper tier athlete to be the true number 1 receiver. But they have a guy in Denzel Mims who fits that physical profile. Denzel Mims is like 6'3", 220 and runs a 4.38, 4.39. He has the right physical profile to be that guy, but Corey Davis is going to be a very consistent, very, very good player. I think he's an awesome fit for the Jets.
Yep, I'm with you. And I think we can move on to the next guy. Who do you want to cover next?
Let's talk about Curtis Samuel.
Ooh, okay. Awesome. So I guess I can just start by talking about him a little bit. So he's been on the Panthers. I think it was 2019 offseason. There was reports that like Curtis Samuel just looks like the best receiver in camp. He's going to be amazing. He didn't quite live up to it, but 2020 he was very, very special. So he's a player that's used more in a gadget role. Like they'll put him at running back. They'll take jet sweeps, bubble screens, those type of things, and you basically just get the ball to him in open space. Probably like 5'9", 5'10", 190. He's really strong, really quick, breaks tackles. After the run, he's a beast. Makes contested catches from time to time. He's not a number 1 guy, though. He's more of like a number 2, someone who gets a ton of catches, but he can't carry an offense for himself. Where do you think Curtis Samuel should go?
Washington football team.
Okay.
Get him back with Scott Turner. Scott Turner had him until last year in Carolina, and I think he would be a good fit. I think Washington needs somebody on the other side of Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin is a proven number 1 receiver. Well, they need a quarterback first, but once they get that quarterback, Terry McLaurin is a proven number 1 receiver. They just need somebody on the other side of Terry McLaurin who's going to be able to make plays. And I think whoever the quarterback is, Curtis Samuel is really quarterback friendly because a lot of the NFL today is jet sweeps, the little push pass, all of those things. And Curtis Samuel is really, really special at doing all of those things. He's a great ball carrier with the ball in his hands. And I think he's actually super underrated as a receiver. I don't think people realize how good he was as a receiver. And I think Teddy Bridgewater, who's an okay player, kind of hurt his production because he left yards and throws on the field to Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel is a stud, and I think that the Washington football team would give them a much needed boost on their offense because they need some explosiveness and they need somebody who's going to make plays with the ball in his hands that's not named Terry McLaurin, and Curtis Samuel is definitely that guy.
Yeah, so I think you hit it right on. Like, they need someone who's like actually explosive because when you watch this team, especially when they had Alex Smith, it was not easy to watch their offense. They're just like not exciting. So right now their top 3 receivers are Terry McLaurin, Cam Sims, and then Steven Sims. So I think I forget which one it was, but one of them was drafted in the 3rd round. I think it was Cam Sims. And he was decent, like nothing crazy. Then they have McLaurin, obviously, at tight end. Logan Thomas really came on last season as sort of a guy who's catching like short and intermediate routes. He was a former quarterback, if you remember, from Virginia Tech. And he transitioned to tight end, which is pretty crazy. And then the running back, Antonio Gibson, he's a converted receiver to running back. He was really good last year in the limited time. But they're still missing someone who's, like you said, going to make explosive plays, going to make someone miss in the open field and make something out of nothing. Because they really don't have that. And that would help whatever quarterback they have. Because right now, Taylor Heineke played 1 game and he looked awesome against the Buccaneers, but we don't know how good he'll be. We know that.
So both the Sims were actually undrafted, both Cam Sims and Steven Sims. But the point is that it tells you that they need somebody explosive on their offense. And I think Terry McLaurin is the number one wide receiver. So I don't think they need to go get Kenny Golladay or get anybody like that. But they need an element to their offense because this defense is going to be really good. I think we all expect it to really be good. And I think we expect their front four to be a year better this year. Like Jonathan Allen is a superstar. Chase Young is coming, and I think he's going to be really good next year. I thought his rookie season was a little overstated, but I think his second season is going to be insanely good. It's going to be a defensive player of the year type season. So because of that, they don't need much from their offense. So they just need a play caller to be creative, a la the Chicago Bears in 2018, where Matt Nagy had a bunch of gadget plays with Tyreek Cohen and all of that, and that's how they were able to it wasn't a sustainable offense, but it was an effective one to score in the red zone. And Curtis Samuel brings all of those elements. Plus, he's a damn good receiver. So this fits as well as Teddy Bridgewater's gloves fit on his hand to me.
And that I think you really, again, like he's a good receiver too. Like he can make contested catches. He can go down the field. His game is mainly short stuff and intermediate routes where he gets the ball in space and he makes a guy miss. But he can go downfield. He can make contested catches. I don't care if he's small. He's tough, and he has good hands too. So he would be an awesome signing for the Washington football team.
Agreed. So the next name we're going to get to is a guy who had a pretty rough season on social media. He started off doing great with the TikToks, and then the TikToks really got to him later in the season, and that's Juju Smith-Schuster. So, Blake, where do you think – or who do you think should sign Juju Smith-Schuster this offseason?
Okay, so I think I'll preface this by saying I think Juju's really good. I think he gets a little too much hate for his TikToks and stuff and being dramatic or causing drama. When you compare that to like AB and Le'Veon Bell, like I just don't even think they compare. Like he makes TikToks doing Corvette. It's really not a big deal. Like him dancing on the logos kind of messed up and whatnot, but like it's a non-story in my mind. I think he would be a really good number 2 on a team, a guy in the slot who can play, make short passes and catches, but he's never going to be the number 1 guy to take over a game. And I think – so there's a few teams that I think should sign him, but I think the team that should sign him the most or needs him the most is the Miami Dolphins. So right now they have Parker. They have Mike Gesicki as their top 2 options. Parker doesn't create the most separation, pretty good downfielding and at contested catches. We already mentioned earlier that Tua is not the best with that, but Juju is reliable, pretty good after the catch, and he'll create separation in the slot. I think that'd be awesome for Tua to have a guy like him who's a safety blanket, you could almost say, because Mike Gesicki goes down the field a lot too. So having a guy like Juju to go short would be huge for him. What are your thoughts on Juju to the Dolphins?
I love it because I think that Juju Smith-Schuster is exactly what the doctor ordered. So we've kind of discussed throughout this show this kind of idea of, well, which team should get Curtis Samuel, which team should get Juju, and we also discussed whether the Dolphins should keep Tua. In the case that they keep Tua, they need a guy who's going to be over the middle, who's going to be reliable, who's going to be tough. And Juju Smith-Schuster is all those things. He's also another guy who's actually pretty good under the catch. Like, he kind of runs people over. Juju's strong after the catch. Juju's a hell of a blocker in the run game. I think he would be exactly what the doctor ordered from Miami. And if Devontae Parker can play the way he played 2 years ago, then they have a really good 1-2 combination, and maybe they draft a third guy. Like, imagine if Miami could walk out of this offseason keeping Tua, but still by drafting Jalen Waddle to go with Devontae Parker and Juju Smith-Schuster. That would be pretty special. And I think that Juju is exactly what they're looking for. I think Juju is a perfect fit for what they're looking for. And I think Juju would be perfect for Tua. I think he would do he would do wonders to Tua's career, because right now I feel like with Tua also there's just lacking a confidence in throwing contested footballs and throwing balls into tight windows. And I think Juju, because of his toughness, because of his reliability, because of his hands, you can give him, you can get that trust, and you can start to get some confidence, because you can know that if I throw a ball into a tight window, Juju's going to come down with it.
And here's the thing too. So last year he kind of, I guess you could say, fell to the third receiver with Claypool and Deontay Johnson being really, really good for young guys. But the Steelers' offense, when they weren't pushing the ball down the field, which they rarely did to Claypool, basically just be dump offs to Juju or Johnson. Their offense was really interesting in the fact that it was all within like 10 yards of the line of scrimmage for the most part. So Juju kind of feasted in a sense that he would get peppered with targets. And he did fall to that role because that's his main job is, operating in the slot and going over the middle and stuff like that. But that's valuable to any team. And even if he was the third receiver for the Dolphins, if they pay him $8 to $10 million, which I'd say like 8 to 12 probably, but somewhere in that range, I think that'd honestly be a pretty good deal for someone who is a really, really amazing number 3 receiver and at worst a solid number 2.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think that Juju's TikToks have really gotten him a lot of flack. Yeah. Like, I think that there's more to Juju's game than what Juju showed in this year in Pittsburgh because of the way their offense was and because of the way Ben was. Like, Juju isn't like this burner where you just line him up like DK Metcalf and just say, go beat their number 1 corner one-on-one down the field. But he's good enough to win down the field, and he can do a lot of different things. And I think if Miami gets him for $10 to $12 million next to Devontae Parker, like, wow, that'd be great for Miami.
Yeah. I'm with you. And he did go off when AB was next to him drawing double coverage every time. He had, like over 1,300 yards or something?
Yeah, that was also a different Ben, but yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely it was a better situation. And we know there's the TikTok issue, or I don't really think it's that much, but he was voted team MVP that year. I think it was 2018, right?
Yeah, because AB got super mad about it.
Yeah, but like he's not like a terrible person. He's not like, the people that get fined for like using slurs or anything. It's such a non-issue. I don't know why we're even discussing it.
No, he is a good team. He is a good teammate. People just wanted to make fun of him for the TikToks. Like, there's nothing wrong with Juju Smith-Schuster.
I understand.
Yeah. So finally, let's hit the name, and I think maybe the best receiver in this class. I was appalled that the Lions did not franchise tag this guy because I thought that him and DeAndre Swift were like 2 things Lions fans had to look forward to, especially with Marvin Jones leaving and Matthew Stafford gone and them getting Jared Goff. Never a great situation when you're getting Jared Goff. But let's talk about Kenny Golladay. Where do you think is the best fit for Kenny Golladay?
Okay, so they didn't tag him, but I really think that the Lions should keep him. So I know they're going to be rebuilding, so like they don't like need to just get someone who's, not on a rookie deal, even though he's amazing, and I think they should get him. Like, he's not completely needed to win, but if they don't have him, who are they going to have at receiver? They don't have Jesse James anymore. They don't have Marvin Jones. Like, they are going to have, like, actually no receivers that are worth keeping. I think they got rid of Danny Amendola as well. The only other guys they'd really have are Quintez Cephas, who honestly is a rookie. I'm pretty sure he's a rookie or a young guy. He wasn't that bad. But I think they just need him. Just whoever is the quarterback, like, they have to field an offense. They may as well have like someone of talent to help aid in that bridge. And maybe they do go a young guy. And if they do go a young guy.
Yeah, agreed. And we talked about this before when we were planning the show. We think this would be a great fit. But to me, the Detroit Lions have to keep Kenny Golladay. They have to keep him. Jared Goff needs a perfect situation to succeed. They have Anthony Lynn now, so they're obviously going to run the ball. And so when they run the ball and go play action, something Jared Goff is actually reasonably decent at, which is play action bootlegs, they need somebody to throw to, and Kenny Golladay is that dude. I don't see why you would let him go. The Detroit Lions have to keep Kenny Golladay. He's a stud. It would make a lot of sense for them to keep him. I think you made a lot of good points in terms of their weapons. Like, TJ Hawkinson's a superstar in the making. He's a stud. But you need somebody else too. And Hawkinson, Gallaudet, you have a pretty decent offensive line, especially Ragnow is a special center to go with DeAndre Swift, who looked really, really good last year. Anthony Lynn is going to have a good run game for them. Jared Goff is a good play-action quarterback. If you bring Gallaudet back, this team might not just be a terrible bottom feeder. Maybe you're competing in the NFC North in terms of, I'm not saying they would win it. I'm not saying they're competing for second, but I'm saying they would be a competitive football team, and they would battle because they have that sort of talent on their team, especially because I think Kenny Golladay is a really true number one wide receiver.
Yeah, and like when you were saying Lynn, so he obviously loves running the ball. If you watched any Chargers games, they would hammer run on first down, regardless of whether Kalen Ballage or whatever running back was on the field. They would love to run, and a lot of Kenny Galladay's like big plays are off of play action when Stafford would basically do play action, roll out, and fire a bomb down to him, either on a really deep pass or it'd be like an intermediate crosser or sometimes a comeback. And he can make contested catches. He's like 6'4", 215 or 220. He's going to make contested catches, and he's going to burn people deep too. I think the craziest play I've ever seen of him was he caught a deep pass on the Packers, and he stiff-armed Clinton Dix to the ground. Like, I actually baptized him. It was bad, but it was pretty crazy because he was young at the time. And he did lead the league in touchdowns. He had 12 touchdowns in 2019. Didn't really do much last year, so I like him a lot. I think he doesn't get talked about because he's in Detroit, but he's a really good player. He really is.
Yeah, special body control, like you said, great hands, goes up, contested catches, really tough, really physical. I mean, Anthony Lynn, yeah, he wanted to run the ball in with the Chargers, but he also did have Keenan Allen, who's a different kind of receiver, but a stud. And then he had Mike Williams, who's a similar receiver and who I also think is a stud when he's healthy. And Kenny Golladay is better than both.
He's a better version.
He's a better version of Mike Williams. Is he better than Keenan Allen? I would say it's pretty close. They're both
offense, probably.
Yeah, I would venture to say it's pretty close. And so I don't understand why they didn't tag him, but they got to re-sign him. The Lions have to bring back Kenny Golladay.
Yep. And then 2, did you want to talk about the Patriots fit and why that would be good?
Sure. Let's talk about the Patriots before. Really appreciate it, Tony. Thank you for joining and watching. So let's talk about the Patriots, okay? Why should the Patriots sign Kenny Golladay? Well, one, for whatever reason, I never understood the reason. Maybe it's because Cam can get super high when he starts getting really tight and his shoulder goes way up when he throws it like that. He can start throwing the ball pretty high. And so the Carolina Panthers have always invested in 6'4", 6'5" receivers, Devin Funchess, Kelvin Benjamin. But yeah, joking aside, I think Kenny Golladay would be an incredible fit in New England. They need a true number one receiver. And N'Keal Harry looks like a guy who's lost all confidence. Julian Edelman, man, I mean, his toughness is special, but I've never seen a guy like his. They probably don't even have space to include the other players in the injury report because Julian Edelman's list of injuries is so long. He's been managing like ribs, back, shoulder, finger, arm, leg, ankle, hamstring, quad. Like he's managing every part of his body. So they need a true number one receiver. They have an awesome power run game, something we talked about with Grant. Like their offensive line, now they got Trent Brown. I think they let Joe Thuney walk, but they bring back David Andrews. They're big, mean. They're going to be able to run the ball. I think their defense, when you get Dante Hightower back, you get Patrick Chung back. Kyle Duggar looked pretty good in his rookie season. J.C. Jackson, even if they lose Stephon Gilmore, it's Jonathan Jones, Devin McCourty, Jason McCourty. It's still a really, really good secondary. Belichick is still really great. And you add that with Cam Newton's running ability, all of that, and you bring Kenny Golladay, which is what the doctor ordered. Like, watch out for New England if they get Kenny Golladay.
I'm with you. And more on fit, right? So we've talked about their receivers a little bit. So their top 2 receivers, or top 3, are Damiere Byrd, Jacoby Myers, and Edelman. Edelman can't stay healthy. I think he's 34 or 35. So that's already just a bad recipe right there. And Myers, that Gunnar, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Gunnar Olszewski. Is it Olszewski? Yeah.
Something like that. He's a good punt returner, but I wouldn't venture to say he's really the guy you need at receiver. So they need someone who can, A, make contested catches, B, actually get open and like create some separation because these other guys are just not the best. They're younger. And be reliable for Cam because as much as people harp on him, I think we've talked about a little bit, he was in a really bad situation. They don't have any good either. His arm isn't the best, and accuracy is kind of his like biggest issue. So having a guy with a catch radius can make contested catches and make plays. It would open up for the play action too, because you said their run game is set up to be huge with the NFL going smaller at linebacker.
They're going to be mauling people.
Yeah. Damian Harris, Michelle. If they keep Burkhead, I don't know if they'll keep White, but they have big dudes that they can run behind. Devlin may be back.
And I think that, and Trent Brown, yeah, he's more of a pass blocker, but for their scheme, he's not a bad run blocker. Like, he was a terrible fit for the Niners scheme because he doesn't get off the ball quickly and he doesn't block well in space. But the Patriots, while they do run zone, they do also run a lot of power gap scheme, which suits him more because it's a little more man-on-man blocking. And I think you brought it up with Cam Newton. Like, let me describe Cam Newton's offseason last season. If this was any other quarterback, we would have a different scenario. So let's take the name out of it. Coming off serious injury, 0 weapons, new offensive system, shortened offseason, got COVID-19, team got COVID-19, team had 8 opt-outs, and they still won, 8 games? 7 games?
Mm-hmm.
What are we talking about here? Just because you see a couple clips on Twitter of Cam Newton missing badly, you think Cam Newton's a bad quarterback. Like, is that how you evaluate quarterback play? That's messed up to me. Like, Cam Newton's accuracy short has always been streaky. It's always been streaky. It's not something that he was amazing at his MVP season too. He had the one season with McCaffrey and Curtis Samuel where he was insanely accurate, but it's always been, sometimes it's insanely accurate, sometimes he's just missing. But he's still a really good quarterback because he makes a ton of plays with his arm, still makes a ton of plays with his legs. I mean, he had 12 rushing touchdowns last year. Let that sink in. Cam Newton individually had 12 rushing touchdowns last year, and I think he only played 14 or 13 games. Yeah. That's almost a touchdown a game rushing. That's pretty special. So I think that people are sleeping on Cam Newton, and if they get Kenny Golladay, just watch out. Just watch out.
How good do you think they could be if they got him? I really think they can win 10 or 11 games this year.
11 to 12.
Now, here's the issue, though. Their division's really good. You have the Dolphins, you have the Bills. I don't think the Jets will be there yet, but they can surprise some teams. It's a divisional game. And the AFC, although it is pretty top-heavy, I mean, I guess their schedule shouldn't be too bad. Nice.
So here's what I'll say in regards to them versus the Bills. I mean, I saw that the Bills have interest in D'Amico Autry. That would be huge for the Bills to get. Star Lotulelei coming back would be huge for the Bills. But I think the Bills are going to have trouble with this run game next year, especially if you give them a legitimate threat outside in Kenny Golladay. I think the Bills will struggle to stop the Patriots run game. And the Patriots need to get bigger up front too. But if the Patriots do get bigger, like, the Patriots match up well with the Bills in terms of the fact that they can't really stop the run. The Bills can't really run the ball. The Bills' run game is their best runner is their quarterback, Josh Allen, which is a problem. So because of that, I actually think the Patriots match up really nicely with the Bills. So that's something to look for. The Dolphins are going to be really good. We'll see. And then, so I think, the 7 playoff seeds in the 17 games, watch out.
I think at minimum they're getting 10 wins this year.
I agree.
I'm not going to doubt Bill. You never doubt him.
Absolutely not. So I think we've reached all the topics we've planned, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll take some questions. I've seen a lot of really good questions coming in the chat, and we'll start to answer them. Will, I really appreciate you tuning in. I see you tuning into all these streams, so thank you so much for joining. So let's start with Packers GOAT, who's been really harping on this question, and it's how would Curtis Samuel fit in Green Bay?
He would fit too well. It would actually just be perfect. I think we mentioned it earlier. Curtis Samuel would fit best on a team where there's a dominant number one, and he could be the guy that does the more gadget stuff. So I think if Curtis Samuel were to be on the Packers, he could take over that Tyler Ervin role of doing, the runarounds, taking some jet sweeps, and doing that. And then they could also use him in a ton of other creative ways. We're talking about Matt LaFleur. Vish, is there a way you could see him being used, something to how the Niners use any of their players?
Yeah, they could use him. They could use him similarly to the way the Niners use Debo.
Yeah,
he can do similar kinds of stuff to what Debo can do. I don't think he's as good as Debo, but he can do similar stuff. I mean, they had Tavon Austin on the roster for a little bit, and they would put him in motion and do those kinds of things. But this would be special. Curtis Samuel on the Packers would be special. Think Randall Cobb and inject steroids into Randall Cobb, and you have Curtis Samuel. maybe not as good as like Randall Cobb was like a Julian Edelman in terms of how tough he was over the middle and receiving the football. Curtis Samuel is really good as a receiver, maybe not that good, but Curtis Samuel is special after the catch. Like the only reason Blake and I both wanted to say the Packers before the show when we were discussing the fit, but the money I don't know how the money's going to make sense. I know they restructured Amos. I think Zadarius Smith is due to be restructured, but like this, like the Packers need to get this guy. The Packers need to get this guy.
Oh, I agree. If they did sign him, this would bump Lazard to the number 3. I think he'd be a really good number 3, honestly. I think he's not the best too, just because he's not as consistent of a receiver, just catching, and he'll pop off some games, other games he'll be quiet. But he's a really good blocker. And then as much as everyone likes to harp on MVS, if he was the number 4 guy, I think he'd be a fine number 4. He still catches tons of deep bombs. He drops a ton too. But still, Curtis Samuel as the number 2 would be insane. And it would add a bit of explosiveness to what we don't have with Davante Adams. And he's not going to, take a screen 50 yards. Curtis Samuel can. Curtis Samuel will initiate contact. He will run people over. He will juke people out of their shoes. He's explosive. He's quick. He's everything that the Packers need in a number 2 that we don't have, that we wanted last year. And maybe they want to go with a guy like Kadarius Toney or Rondale Moore to do that. But Curtis Samuel is proven, and I think he's, quite frankly, probably better than those guys right now.
Yeah, Curtis. I love Kadarius Toney. He's my favorite player in the draft, and I think that's a great fit for the Packers too. Kadarius Toney, Rondale Moore, 2 names that are great names for them. But I think that, like, if you're going to lose Aaron Jones, I wouldn't mind getting Kadarius Toney and Curtis Samuel. You need as many guys that are special with the ball in their hands in terms of creating explosive plays. Like, the offense can't be just solely LaFleur and Rodgers, just good scheme and Rodgers being awesome at executing it and Davante Adams winning. There has to be more to it than that. And somebody like Curtis Samuel is a guy that can do things beyond the scheme, where you throw him a screen and he goes 80 yards for a touchdown. Yeah. There's like, it's not like they have to be perfect. It's not like Rodgers and LaFleur have to be perfect every game.
Yeah. And I think this is something they've kind of been missing over the years, is missing a second guy who can win one-on-one consistently. Because if you double Tanyan, I don't think he's there yet. I think he's pretty good. He can't do it consistently. I don't think Lazard or MVS could win consistently. But Curtis Samuel could probably win consistently if given the amount of opportunities, open up more gadgets, and even better than Tyler Ervin, who I'm fine with on the team. But Curtis Samuel would be insane in those jet handoffs, those little touch passes that we see all the time. And it would just add another layer of complexity to the Packers offense that would make them even possibly better than last year, which is kind of
make them way better than last year. Way better.
Yeah.
Because Rodgers played flawless last year and they still didn't have enough around him. If they had Curtis Samuel, they're going to have a really good offensive line, whether Corey Linsley stays or whether Corey Linsley leaves, just because that's just what the Packers do, right? They had J.C. Tretter. Now they have Corey Linsley. J.C. Tretter is still one of the better centers in the NFL in Cleveland, and Corey Linsley is really good, but don't worry. They got another 5th-round pick that's just waiting in the wings to be really good for them. Yeah, so I'm joking when I say that, but it's true. But ultimately, if they get Curtis Samuel, they're finally going to have the offense, I think, that Rodgers deserves.
Yep, I'm with you on that. And then if there is any other questions, throw them in.
Yeah, just throw them in. So can I call into Ronbo's show? Who is Ronbo and what is his show? I mean, if I have time, I'm sure I could call in. Is that your show, Kevin?
There was one other thing too. I think it was previously mentioned about adding like a call-in or a phone.
Oh, yeah. I saw that. We do plan to do a call-in show at some point. If that's something you guys are really interested in, we'll maybe make a YouTube poll. Just make sure you go vote in it. And if we get enough interest in it, we'll definitely do a call-in show for sure. There was also one more question.
We can cover this quickly. So we actually talked about this on a separate video. Vish wasn't in here, but quickly, one name that me and Vish both love is Michael Carter out of UNC. Think he's really good. And then is Dylan already a bust? I would say no. He just the style he plays is kind of unique where he's not like short or quick and he's not really good after the catch. But I think he's still solid and he'd be really good in a running back by committee.
Yeah, so I think UNC has two special running backs in this draft, and I think Michael Carter is tailor-made in terms of running outside zone, inside zone for the Shanahan style run game, which is what the Packers do. Michael Carter would be like another Aaron Jones for them. If they can manage to get Michael Carter, it'll be seamless. I think they got to get him.
Yep.
Rombo is a Niners person. No, I don't know him. I'll look him up. Sorry about that. I didn't know him. My bad. I'll look him up. He's apparently a Jimmy homer. Well, I mean, I'm a fan of Jimmy Garoppolo. I think we all are. It's just, I mean, I guess I'd like to say I'm realistic about his play, but who knows what reality and realistic is. In my opinion, from my evaluation, I think I've made it clear where I stand on who he is and his level of play. I saw a couple of really good questions. Guys, if you have any questions, just throw them in here. We're ready to answer them for maybe another 5 to 10 minutes. We're just waiting for these really good questions. Blake, if you see any, just pull them up.
Oh, this was something I thought we should have talked about earlier. So are Burrow and Herbert looking like superstars, making Tua look bad? And I would say yes. I would say to some extent, it's been warping people's like mind just how good quarterbacks have been coming into the league. Mahomes, Lamar Jackson's second year, Kyler Murray, Burrow, Herbert. There's like 5 guys that have looked the part of these guys are going to be really good for a long time. And when Tua comes out and he doesn't look like a guy like that, immediately people are like, we should move on. And I think another reason is we saw what happened with the Cardinals, and I think it was an anomaly, let's put it that way, of them cutting bait with Rosen and then moving on to Murray. It was pretty unforeseen of that happening. But yeah, I think that's really one of the main reasons people are down on Tua. And I do think he's not the best either. Like I'll say, I don't think he's a top 8 quarterback, but
no. Yeah, no, this is 100% true. It's unfortunate for the Dolphins because Justin Herbert might have had the best rookie quarterback season we've ever seen, and he was drafted 1 pick after Tua, who I don't want to say Tua's bad because he's not. He's okay, but Tua's not anywhere near the talent Justin Herbert is. That's just a fact. Justin Herbert's bigger. Justin Herbert's stronger. Justin Herbert throws with more anticipation. Justin Herbert stands taller in the pocket. Justin Herbert's a way better arm. Justin Herbert's a more consistent thrower. But Tua's a good player. Like, Tua's not a bad player. I mean, Burrow is special in terms of how Burrow processes the game, how athletic he is, how well he moves. Like, Burrow is also really special in his own way. And he because he doesn't have anywhere near the arm of Herbert, maybe looks a little bad because of Herbert. But yeah, I mean, it's nothing against Tua, right? Tua's good. I think we talked about it earlier, right? Tua's solid. Tua's a really good player. Or I don't want to say really good. Tua's good. He didn't have any wow moments, but he didn't have any terrible moments. The big thing I think people question with Tua, and it's because the Josh Rosen, Kyler Murray thing was like, yeah, Rosen was in a terrible situation, but Kyler Murray's ceiling is just so much bigger than Josh Rosen. And he took that exact same situation and made the Cardinals exciting. It's what is Tua's ceiling when you have a team that's possibly a Super Bowl team next year? That's the question. And I think it's a question that the Dolphins have to be asking themselves. In my opinion, I didn't like him a lot before the draft, so I don't think his ceiling is the highest. But I'm not the one who needs to answer that question. And if they win a Super Bowl with Tua, then I can just take my L. Like, okay, I was super wrong about it. But the Dolphins better be right about it because they have a top 5 pick, and there's some special quarterbacks in this draft.
Yeah. And then there was one thing I wanted to put up real quick. So thanks for this, JR. Really appreciate it. Again, anyone that makes a donation, very, very appreciative of you guys even just supporting us in any way. So that's awesome. But do you think Deshaun is the type of player that can have players take pay cuts to come play for that team? Do you think he is?
Yes, absolutely. This is a one-word answer. Deshaun Watson is special. Deshaun Watson's personality is special. Deshaun Watson, who he is special. Forget the NFL stuff. Deshaun Watson is who put Clemson on the map. Like, they became this powerhouse with Dabo Swinney and all of that, but the first guy that really put him on the map was Deshaun Watson. Like, just a special personality. What he did against Alabama in those 2 national title games, the toughness he showed, the poise he showed, the accuracy, all of that is really special. By all accounts, Deshaun Watson's extremely well liked. You can see why he carries himself with such poise, charisma. He's so well spoken. And so, yeah, I absolutely think that people would 100% take pay cuts to play with Deshaun Watson.
I disagree. I don't think they would. Name one player besides Tom Brady that a lot of people have willingly said, okay, I'm going to get paid well below market value.
Yeah, you want me to name one?
Sure.
Jimmy Garoppolo, Richard Sherman decided that he wanted to come to the 49ers. That had an impact back in the day.
It did not. He was coming off an injury. That's why he got.
No, he was coming off an injury, and people questioning because he was his own agent, and there were teams willing to offer more, and he signed immediately with the Niners. And he said he quoted Garoppolo as one of the reasons he signed. But yeah,
in the grand scheme of things, it is very rare for an NFL player who has a small shelf life and a very limited opportunity to make guaranteed money, which doesn't come easy for these guys, to take a pay cut. I think in an instance like COVID, it is possible. If he goes to the Dolphins, I guarantee you there would be guys that take a pay cut. But I think that's mainly because of COVID and just the cap being all screwed up, as well as just an unreal opportunity if they had Deshaun Watson.
But yeah, unbelievable. But Miami with Deshaun Watson, good night. Good night. If Miami, Carolina, or hopefully the Niners, just because I'm a Niners fan, I'll throw them out. But if Miami or Carolina gets Deshaun Watson, holy cow. Holy cow.
Yeah, and here's the other thing too. Like on the Texans, did you see anyone taking a pay cut to go play for them? If anything, they were taking just
but who would take a pay cut? Who would take a pay cut to play for a team owned by Bob and Cal McNair with Jack Easterby existing in their organization?
Exactly. Okay, that's fair. But
yeah,
like I said, you just don't see players take a pay cut that often, and I don't blame them. I would not either. If your company said we're going to have to pay you $3,000 less or however much so we could hire other people, what would you say? I would say no. I'm not.
Yeah.
No, why would I do that? Like, it's human nature to take the most money you can get, and that's not a bad thing. That's just what it is.
I mean, you're right. I'll concede you're right in what you say, but I'm going to say if there was a quarterback that people would take a pay cut for, he would be one of them.
He is very well liked by, it seems, everyone in the NFL media, or most people at least, and by a lot of other players. He would be one of the few exceptions I could say where I could see people saying, okay, I'm a veteran. I'm going to go ring chase. I want to play with this guy because I think he's special. That is definitely true. But it's just such a rarity in the NBA or in the NFL. In the NBA, it happens a lot. I mean, it's pretty crazy how much it happens.
But those guys can make enough career money over a career. I mean, how much money is enough? I'm not the one to judge that, but I guess they can make enough where they can sit back and say, fair enough. What's the weekly schedule when y'all stream? Honestly, it's whenever we get a chance. We try to do 2 streams a week. We usually end up doing 1, but it's usually we try to get a weekend stream and we try to get a midweek stream. I have spring break, not next week, but the week after that. So maybe we'll get 2 or 3 streams in then. Yeah. Just keep an eye on my Twitter. I'll tweet it out. Blake will usually post it on YouTube here. We're usually good about posting it in the morning and telling you we're streaming in the afternoon. I mean, there's a couple things more coming up too. You guys asked for the phone. We'll definitely do the StreamYard phone. We'll just see how many people want to do it. And if a lot of people want to do it, let's do it. So I did want to answer this question. I think this is the last one we're going to take. So thank you everybody for your questions. And it's from Eric Bissell, who's the biggest QB wins guy in the chat. Every time we stream, Eric comes in here. He'll be here for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, but he'll tell Blake and I why it's wrong how we're looking at quarterbacks because the wins and losses dictate. Okay, so I'm going to take this a different route because I think this is actually a hell of a question. Is there a way to look at a quarterback and factor in whether or not he's a winner? So I think this is a different question from just evaluating quarterbacks based on wins and losses. Like, obviously, the NFL, the bottom line is winning, but the point that you and I always make is that winning takes context. So the best way I would say to evaluate, sorry, Blake, I'm going to answer this and then let you go. But the best way I would say to evaluate a quarterback based solely on wins and losses is first you got to discern how much the quarterback does for that team to win. So you have to be able to do it. And there's a lot of ways to look at it. There's analytical ways to look at it. There's the eye test. You turn on film. There's a lot of different things you can look at to say what a quarterback does to impact a game. Like with guys like an Aaron Rodgers, it's obvious with Aaron Rodgers, right? You don't even need to watch anything. You can just watch the game and say, well, yeah, everything they need to win, Aaron Rodgers does all of that for them to win. So from that standpoint, I think there is wins. You have to use wins. Like if you're evaluating two quarterbacks who do a similar thing for their team, but one maybe wins more and they have similar level squads, then I would say, yeah, that's where the wins come into play. But to me, it's all context. It's context. It's nuance. You have to look at everything surrounding the quarterback. The NFL, there's 22 players on the field. It's not like the quarterback is the most important position, but at the same time, we've seen a lot of great quarterbacks not be able to win because of horrible situations, and we've seen a lot of mediocre quarterbacks win a ton because of fantastic situations, and that's something you always have to remember.
Yeah, I think to that point, one example would be Drew Brees in I think it was 2014 to 2016. They had the worst defense in the league. They went 7-9 those years. But he was playing out of his mind. And is that to say that a quarterback who's maybe league average, who is taking his team to the playoffs, is better than Drew Brees? Well, no, of course not. Drew Brees was having to carry a heavier load. His defense was allowing obscene amounts of points and forcing them to be in terrible positions, causing them to lose games. I'm not going to say Drew Brees is not as good as this guy because they didn't win as many games. I think that's foolish. And then again, we always mention this team, but the 2018 Bears, when you watch Mitch Trubisky, did you really have that high of expectations for him? And would you say he was better than Aaron Rodgers? And I don't believe they did make the playoffs in 2018. That was one of their down years, right? But would you say that Mitch Trubisky's better than Rodgers? Well, Trubisky made the playoffs. He had more wins. Well, of course not. He was surrounded with a defense that had over 50 turnovers or 40, however many. So, yeah, like you said, context and nuance are just you have to take that into account. You can't just solely look at wins and losses and say, okay, he's better because he's the quarterback and his team won more games.
Yeah, I mean, why is that quarterback winning? Like, if in Aaron Rodgers' case, they win because of Aaron Rodgers. In Jared Goff's case, Jared Goff has won a ton of games over the last 4 years. They win because of their defense. They win because of Sean McVay's creativity and limiting Jared Goff on how he throws the ball, where he throws the ball, limiting how much Jared Goff has to process, and they win because of their run game. And so it's not to say Jared Goff is a bad quarterback. Jared Goff is a starting quarterback in the NFL, which to me is a good quarterback overall. It's just that he's not as good as, say, Derek Carr because Derek Carr doesn't win as much. Well, what situation is Derek Carr in? So that's what you always have to look at. Sure, wins is something that I think plays a factor into it. Yeah. But I think it's not the exact way to evaluate quarterbacks. You have to look at their physical ability. You have to look at their mental ability. You have to look at how many plays those quarterbacks make individually. I mean, stuff like leadership, it's tough to quantify, especially because we are not in those locker rooms. Like a guy with Tom Brady, his leadership easily quantifiable. It's the best in the NFL. But how do you quantify Derek Carr's leadership versus Jared Goff's leadership? Yeah, and Matthew Stafford, Eric's still coming at us, but Matthew Stafford, you're going to find out when the Rams win 10-plus games, you will see why putting Matthew Stafford in that terrible situation in Detroit had nothing to do with how good a player he was. They didn't win because Detroit is a bad organization who put a bad football team around a very good quarterback.
Yeah, so I think bottom line is QB stats or QB wins are not the best way to judge a quarterback, but they could be used in the context of comparing similar situations and career paths. Like, say, Phillip Rivers and Eli. You could say, okay, well, Eli clutched up, in the playoffs, and Phillip Rivers maybe didn't, and they had comparable situations. That would be something you could use it as. But to say Mitch Trubisky was better than Aaron Rodgers in 2018 because the Bears made the playoffs, no. There's
nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts. All right, guys. So I'll just quickly answer these, and then we'll be out of here. Thank you so much for joining us. This was an hour, 10 minutes. We really appreciate it. So Do I usually go on other people's show? My friend is wondering. I mean, sure. It just depends. Again, it's all about my school schedule. I'm not great with my schedule, but I always know what I got in the week. I always have a calendar with my week, and I only think of the week ahead of me. So just ask your friend to DM me, and maybe we can set something up. And so, are you going to do a detailed video for each QB in the coming draft? I mean, maybe. I'm not sure if we have time to sit and actually, like, I have the all 22 where we pull up the film and do that. I don't think we have the time for that, but maybe we can go through each quarterback. I saw your question about Mond versus Jones versus Trask. I think Blake is a little earlier in the process of looking at these quarterbacks than I am. I think he's really only looked at Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence. I've seen quite a few of them. And I would say, I know you're a big Trask fan. I've seen your comments, but for me, I think Jones and Mond are definitely a cut above Trask. To me, Mac Jones is a middle of the first round pick. I think he's a good thrower. I think he's accurate. I think he processes information really well. I think he's a good player. I don't know what his physical upside is. And then I think Mond reminds me of if Alex Smith and Kaepernick had a baby. He reminds me of Alex Smith's kind of play style with Colin Kaepernick's kind of mechanics and physical ability. So I think Mond's a good player. I would certainly take Mond in the second round. I think he's a really solid player. I think pick 43 for the Niners, if they don't take one in the first round, it wouldn't be a bad pick. To me, Trask is a third or fourth round pick. I don't see a lot of talent in terms of Trask. I see slow feet, slow release, weak arm. His process is very defined in terms of what Dan Mullen does. It's really easy because it's a lot of read one side of the field, high-low. Kyle Pitts make you read one defender, and Kyle Pitts basically makes these reads super defined. The way Dan Mullen used Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney was special. I'm not a big Kyle Trask fan. I'm not even sure he could be a starter in the NFL, but that's my take on it. I know you disagree. Maybe we can do a longer breakdown of it, but yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So I think that wraps the
Blake, I can't hear you. Can you guys hear Blake?
Can you hear me?
Hello?
Now?
No, I can't hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm not sure which one of us you can hear. I don't know what the heck happened here, but I think that's just tells you that it's time to go. We really appreciate you sticking around. Please like, subscribe, share. We'll definitely cut this up and put up some videos. Thank you all for joining us. We really appreciate you. Have a good night.